Linda
did, and give people an account of what you said. Or you can use it as I did, which was as a sort of jumping off point for talking about myths. What I did was a page that said myths about grants based on a completely random, completely unscientific survey among high school students at one of Jacksonville's schools. And I asked them questions such as, what is a grant? And they gave answers. I selected some of the answers. It's free money. It's something to, it's food stamps. They thought of those as grants. How do you get a grant? Do you think you can get a grant? Oh, of course. One student, when I asked, the last question I thought was interesting, I asked, have they had heard of the stimulus money and what they, how do you get a grant? You know, can you? They said, well, you just apply for it. And one student said that she had seen something on the internet. She called, she sent $1.95, given them her credit card number, and they sent her a CD-ROM with something on it about your proposal, but she never got the grant. She was expecting to get the grant in the mail. So in a way, yeah, she was expecting money. So I thought that this level of knowledge about grants was, that I found among high school students, was typical of the general public, those of us who exist outside of universities where grants are your reason for being almost. I thought then to start with that and to talk about one situation in which I was referred to somebody who wanted to seek a grant, and he called me because I'd been referred to him as a grant writer, a term I don't like, because what you are is a proposal writer, but people are always writing grants, seeking grant writers, and we never get to understand that there's a kind of writing in there that where you produce a proposal. Okay, so this particular person that I went to see was talking about a situation in which people from big churches, as opposed to his smaller church, had been talking together about getting grants and seeking some money from the state. And when the money came down, he said, with great annoyance, that the big churches got all the money and the small churches didn't get any. And that's why he wanted to talk to a grant writer to see if he could get some free money, because of course that's what he thought about it. And he had done something at his church that really on the surface was wonderful. He had gotten computers in, had gotten internet connections, but what he wanted was to have public money support anything that he might do, any program that he might bring in. He didn't have a staff, he had no one teaching in an after-school program or anything, but he did want this money coming in. And so he was talking to me about that. Now, this conversation took place more than a year ago, and well before anyone's political campaign gave anybody any hope. Money was scarce and getting scarcer, so the first thing I tried to do was to get him thinking about adapting his program in line with themes that just might get some funds attached to them. You have to be forward-looking when you are talking about grants and looking for the places where money actually is. No point in seeking money from agencies where they don't have any, or no grants program, or they've used all the money or whatever. This was at a time when Mayor Payton was talking about violence in our community, and he was, we had a reason to expect that there might be some money attached to this eventually. Of course, he was going to tax it, taking it from all of us to provide it, and he eventually decided not to do that. But it was just a hunch, and I said, you know, if you can think about a way in which this after-school, these computers can serve a community need and can be some kind of after-school program, you need, first of all, some kind of attachment to a set of ideas that people are thinking about and talking about, and for which an agency might have a good reason to provide some money. in general, I tell people, adapt your projects to the money that's available. None of it is low-hanging fruit, but you can't apply for it if it's not there. And then I went on to tell him some things that I think have to be an important element of every proposal, notwithstanding the fact that I know that there are differences among funding agencies. They're all looking for maybe different things, but there are some things that proposals have in common. One of them is that agencies, especially for state funding, and especially in education and other kinds of social programs, they like to support things that provide models for other people. They like to disseminate knowledge. There's a whole category of grants at the state level in education that are dissemination grants. If your school does something that's good, we want to fund you so that you can send it out to other people, so that you can develop ways in which this thing that you've done that's good can be supported and tried, that's exemplary for other people. Something that's transferable, something that has an application somewhere else, is a way of talking about what you want to do that makes an agency or a funding source see the greater good that might come from supporting your project. The next thing that needs to go in is that a good proposal has to have some way in which it can be evaluated, and that was something, of course, that he hadn't thought about, but there you need to consider a way to do that. And so these measures that are used for evaluation should be specific and measurable, such as X% of students will improve their grades by 1 level, or participants will obtain employment within 6 months, or however many participants will obtain employment within whatever given time space. I didn't think that he was really concerned about, you know, how could I get money, and these kinds of things didn't sort of matter, but it's just trying to outline the shape of a proposal. The other thing that I thought he should think about, and I guess I was also trying to gently tell him he didn't have a possibility of getting any money. But I wanted to suggest that proposals should have a kind of sustainability, or you should be thinking about that, because when the funding agency's money runs out, will you be able to continue this in any way? If it's a good, viable program, it ought to be able to find some way of continuing itself, or finding some other people to support it. Okay, finally, budget should be reasonable. You can't use the budget to just to support your housekeeping or whatever. It has to be clearly applicable to the cost and the part of the project that's being supported. Sustainability, I talked about that. Okay, and finally, the last thing, I kind of debated about whether I should say this, but he asked me a question that was, I thought, indicative of his attitude about grants. He said, what will you do to cut yourself in on it? In other words, I was to be paid out of the proceeds, and I would be doing the work on speculation. So I thought, well, that's a good defeating sort of attitude. Anyhow, I haven't heard from him again. So.
Thank you, Cynthia, so much. This is such a vast topic that we just have to limit it to 34 minutes. I appreciate you.